Welcome to the Life of Phys Podcast. I'm your host, Tyson Martin. On this episode, I have my friend Reggie Ballesteros. Reggie is a photographer, educator, and runs the YouTube channel Reggie B Photo, where his goal is to pass on his knowledge and experience to help others grow as photographers. He is based out of the San Francisco Bay Area. Now let's hear a word from our podcast partner and get to the show. I want to apologize for my voice. I've been sick all week, but I still had to get this episode out. Have a great day. The Life of Phys Podcast is lit by HoboLight. HoboLight is on a mission to empower creators to elevate their creativity with lighting kits made to last and built to inspire. These lights are bold, beautiful, and powerful because HoboLight believes that your lights deserve to be seen. To learn more, follow them on Instagram at HoboLite.
My name is Reggie Ballesteros. I am a photographer and a YouTube content creator based in the San Francisco Bay Area. Prior to this season of my life, I was a wedding photographer, professional wedding photographer for 10 years in the Bay Area. That's how I got a lot of my start. And then I kind of transitioned to content, creating short form content on Instagram, as well as building a YouTube channel. And now that's kind of where I'm at right now, including working a 9-to-5.
So how do you find time to balance? I mean, as a father myself, I know it's very hard to find time to work on something after hours, especially when you have a 9-to-5. So I have a 9-to-5. I come home, I try to have dinner with the kids, and then edit or do whatever I have after my kids are older, so they all go to bed later. So it's kind of trying to find a balance. So how do you find a balance in your workflow?
So that in itself was a big journey, going from I want to say 2020 to this year, and the balance is a lot different. In 2020, I was staying up late. I was thinking oh, I'm staying up till 3 a.m. to make content. This is awesome. And then now it's I don't, even if I have a deadline for a YouTube video and it's 11, I'm going to sleep. We can figure it out. The world is not going to burn down because I didn't publish my Squarespace sponsored video. It's gonna be okay. So I have a very different mindset. But I think the most important thing, the biggest key to finding the balance is, I'm privileged to have a partner, my wife, who partners with me through, co-parenting the kids, doing all the logistics, the household things, and also just being a very supportive person, my number one fan when it comes to my creativity, as well as building this community. I don't think a lot of family members will always think YouTube is a real thing, but for our family it is. It's an important thing. And if I got a video coming up, part of it is just communicating it at the beginning of the week. I got a Squarespace deadline, I need to record 2 videos, can you drop off the kids to school so during this window I can record? That's kind of how I've been doing it, and just finding little pockets here and there to work on it and trying not to stay up late. And I think the other thing too is I work remotely, so I get to stay at home, and if I get some of my work done, I can work on a video edit here and there. And I have a very simplified workflow when it comes to YouTube content. I'm not trying to be a filmmaker because I love creating cool video content, but at the same time I'm not a filmmaker. So if it comes down that I have a deadline and I just need to put out a video where I talk to the camera, show some photos, it's just what I'm going to get done this week. There are some videos that I put a lot of effort into, but I let those kind of fall and publish when I can put the time to. But yeah, I really think just kind of limiting my creative choices sometimes is how I get it done within this limited time frame, and then having a partner who can support me to find pockets of time where my family can support me to do my passion, which is educating people about photography. I think that is probably the biggest thing for sure, is being kind of really in partnership with supporting professional life, creative life, as well as being a parent and a husband. Is I can't give enough credit to my wife. That's how it all works. So we both on our own have done a lot of work to be able to get to this point where we are at the busiest our family has ever been, but it feels like we are really in alignment about everything that's going on for our family.
It's definitely super important to have that support.
Yeah.
I'm the same. If I didn't have the support, there's no way I could juggle everything I have going on. I've actually started getting up on edit days. I get up at 4:45, and that gives me an hour and a half to edit before I have to start waking the kids up.
Yep.
And getting everybody ready to start moving for their day. And it's actually really it's been nice. So I've been able to sit on the couch and watch TV with them. I've been able to do these other things I couldn't do before because I was so stressed about getting 2 episodes out. And now it's 1, and I finished editing on Monday. It came out on Thursday, but the next one's not till next Thursday. And it's such a weird time frame. I have so much time.
Yeah.
So it's just learning to juggle.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Like, I think the unfortunate, but also the fun part about my kids' life right now is that they're at this age where they need a lot. Like, my kids are 5 and 6, so they need a lot. So, I think that is also the reason why I've dialed back, like waking up early or staying up late, because if I do that, it ends up creating a different mood and dynamic that I give to my family. And I ultimately, getting the best YouTube video or the best content or the best photos out there to the internet is not more important than me being able to show up in a good mood to my family. Because I think I do this for them. So that's another big shift that I had to make, going from when I started creating content and doing all these things to today.
And it's a strange line, like a fine line. So I see a lot of content creators. I mean, I'm a fan of photography and art in general. And I see a lot of people and they're go 24/7 about their stuff.
Yeah.
I shut it off. I want to, once I get hooked on something, I am 100% in and I will go, but I also have to have a limit because 1, burnout's real. 2, I have a full-time job that requires me to, work long hours and work hard. And I have this passion of sharing a community space with people on the internet. And so trying to find that perfect line of me time, family time, and, sharing what I like to do it's been a struggle. So I know for you, full-time content creation, that was your job for many years.
Yeah. But yeah, from 2020 to basically May of last year, it was just content. That was basically everything. And I had a few photo gigs here and there, but it was doing YouTube videos, doing a lot of Instagram tutorials. And then at the same time, I was running kind of like a mentorship community. That was what I was doing during that period of time. And it was nice because during that time, my kids were staying at home. They weren't in school yet. So it was having that flexibility was very nice. But when my kids started going to school, it didn't really fit that pace anymore. And also, I think just with going to school, having activities, the financial thing shifts. So I needed to figure out a different, more stable income for myself. And an opportunity came up, so I ended up switching. I will say, though, even though I do have a 9 to 5, I think things kind of lucked out where I actually have been posting more consistently because I'm more busy. It's like weird. It's like the busier you get, the more like I don't want to like glorify like being like a machine, but like you really get your systems down so that you can get things out on time. So for me, it's 2 videos. I've been sticking to 2 videos a month since last August or something like that, which is the most consistent I've been for a long period of time. And this is all also while having a job, which is crazy because when I was just doing full time, it was hard for me to get a video out a month.
Interesting. I know you've worked with brands. You worked with Fujifilm. You were an ex-creator, correct?
Yep.
I was an ex-photographer.
I was an ex-photographer from 2020 to February 2023. Yeah.
Okay. And then I was actually very excited when you came out with your video stating that you were going to, you're not an ex-photographer anymore. You're going to try different brands and branch out. because I really enjoy your style. I really enjoy the way you teach. I actually have your moment video that
Nice.
course that you guys put out. And I've always had this question, and you don't have to answer it, but can you make a living as a content creator while being a parent?
I think you can. Yes, you can. But I think it's really difficult. And I think the biggest thing that needs to happen is that you have to have a diversified revenue stream. And I just, you know, I take it as just a learning point. I wasn't able to get it going to the point that when my kids started going to school, I couldn't scale it. And truth be told, we had a big financial shift. Basically, my wife was working at a tech job, and when all the tech layoffs came, she was included in that, and that's where we needed to figure out something. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna wrap up the content, and I just couldn't bridge the gap that she was able to get. So that's kind of what happened. And it's one of those things where I just had to be honest with myself. It's like, look, I'm trying to do all these things. I had some big contracts that some big brands come in, and then they cut the budget, and that wouldn't work for my family. So I ended up looking for work. I accepted a engineering job, for a mechanical engineering job. I was going to go back to the company that I was before I was a full-time content creator. And then I had an opportunity kind of pop up within the tech world, supporting mobile phone computational photography development, and also photo editing tools for I've never actually stated anywhere, and I think it's not confidential, but I work at Google, and I support the pixel camera development, as well as any of the new editing photo features they do for Google Photos. And it's been a freaking dream job, being able to satisfy both my tech side of my brain, the analytical side, as well as being able to be a photographer and flex my creativity for arguably one of the biggest tech companies in the world. It's kind of weird to say it, and I think I've always strayed away from sharing it on any type of public platform, but it's one of those things where people dig hard enough, they can find it on LinkedIn pretty easily.
Yeah. I don't actually think I've ever heard you share it on any of your social media platforms. So, hey, I appreciate you sharing it with us.
Yeah, for sure.
Another thing I always really appreciate about your style is you really will put out questions and answers. So you'll put out, you'll lay out one of your posts and you'll tell people why, I have your stuff up here on the screen in front of me, but find the perfect light every time. But then you have answers, you have bullet points to it.
Yep.
You give people the answer. You don't make them search for it. And it's very easy to understand how you do it and how you lay it out. What made you go that direction instead of some of the other people that are like, yeah, do this, but it'll cost you $14.95 to get my course?
Yeah, I think so. For me, I think my mission is to teach 1 million people to become photographers. And I think for me, my definition of being a photographer is someone who can go out in the world and they can, with intent, use lighting and composition to be able to create an image. That's all. Whether it's your phone, whether it's you don't even take a photo, what are your creative directing, right? You can place people and light people in a certain way. Some director of photographers don't even run the camera, right? So I think for me, that was important for me to be able to teach these things in a way that was very easy to digest, that anybody, any person, whether it be my mother-in-law does the little hand trick. That, I think it's that specific post you're talking about. She literally goes around did I get it, Reggie? Did I find it? And she's, she's a grandma. She's literally a grandma that's being able to understand how to find good light for a portrait that she would like to take. And I think that just shows that these concepts are powerful and they're not as inaccessible as a lot of people make it seem. And for me, that's important to be able to share that. That's like what I hope my legacy to be, is to be able to teach people these kind of things. And the way that I lay it out in that simplified, easy way is because it doesn't have to be paragraphs long. It's really, most things I try to teach, I want to try to teach them 3 to 5 bullets. That's usually how it should be. And I think within that season, that Instagram carousels are a really big thing. That 10 slide format of like how to present a complicated concept. Say like, let's teach you how to balance flash with ambient. Like I took that as a challenge. Like, how am I going to teach somebody to balance flash with ambient? I'm going to get 10 little squares. How am I going to do that? I usually lay it out like 10 bullets, 1 through 10. The first one is always just a hook, so that's a throwaway. The last one is usually some call to action that I tell people to like purchase my course or a preset or whatever. So that's also a throwaway. So I have 8 slides to kind of teach someone these concepts, and I would just go through and like, okay, what are the 8 things they need to know? Oh, if they only need 3 things, what are the 2 foundational things I need to remind them of before we get in here? And then have a kind of like summary checklist at the end. And I just kept doing those types of posts really from like 2020 to 2022. I was creating new ones. And nowadays I just recycle them over. Like every 6 months, I'll just repost the same ones because my Instagram account is growing at a pace to the point where when you're new, you haven't seen them before. And the way that the algorithm works, they haven't seen them before either. Like your followers don't see everything. So it pays off for me to repost them every 3 to 6 months. And I think another part of the reason why that I communicate that way is because when I was a mechanical engineer, a lot of my job was to be able to communicate technical concepts to people who weren't engineers. So, you have to work with other people. And it's like, how am I going to tell people how this high pressure air compressor works and that we need this type of new part and I need to get it approved by some person who's not an engineer? How do we communicate this? You have to like be able to take the most essential parts and tell somebody else what it means. I think having that practice is how I've been able to take photography and make it as simple as possible. I think my kids, they challenge me every day to be able to figure out even simpler ways to teach them things, because they'll ask like, how does this work? Like one day they asked me like, what's this? Like, what's film? So I had to like think about, okay, how am I going to teach film to at the time they were like 3-4 years old. So I'm like, how am I? So, and I think having those questions asked of me all the time keeps me kind of like on my toes to people like, how can I make these things even simpler? And there's a lot of people who don't like that because, there are people selling $500 courses around the concepts that I teach in the 10 slides. And a lot of people make it very clear. They're like, wow, I learned more from this post than I have from a workshop that it took for 3 days from this person. And it's like, it's not taking away from that person. I think it's just my hope is that, with the power of the internet and kind of like the opportunities that I've been given, I want to give back what I've learned. And ultimately, no one is going to get super good just looking at my posts. They actually have to take them and go out in the world and use them and try. You're not going to get it right away, but at least I could show you kind of like the roadmap a little bit. And hopefully you can take that roadmap and adjust it to where you're actually going. Because no one's ever going where I'm going. They're not using the same quote unquote car that I'm going to go where I'm going. But, they can have a starting point, and then I'm hoping they can do the rest.
Yeah. And I find that, for me, I like it because it's quick, it's to the point, and I don't have to spend any money, and I don't have to sit through a course that's going to bore me for 90% of it.
Yep.
And if you're bored, you aren't learning.
Yeah.
So I really, really do enjoy that aspect of how you've created that. So thank you for doing that for all of us.
Of course.
So community is a huge part for the Life of Phys. So the Phys brand started with my best friend, and it was based around a fixed gear bicycle brand. We were going to create a component brand, and we called it Pedal Harder, You Sissy. So, but Phys was like something we created, and it was so important to me to use that name again that I switched it to Photography Heals Your Soul.
Yep.
Because for me, for my traumas and the things I've suffered in my life, finding a camera allowed me to find that creative spark I was missing since I was forced to quit skateboarding.
Totally. Yeah.
So, community feel, I know that's important for you. What is your outlook on trying to build a community in a creative space where everybody wants to compete with each other?
It's tough. I would say community too is a very hot word that people use to kind of like mask what they're doing. And I think it means different things to different people. Some people create communities that are very elitist, like, and they're
Yep.
just with them. I think for me, I did a big part of trying to build a community online. And I think my next phase right now has been trying to, I'm not organizing it, but I'm participating in local photography communities. So I go to a meetup every month. It's called Cameras and Coffee, and usually it's based in the San Francisco Bay Area, but most of the meetups are in Oakland, East Bay, and that's run by he's a Leica ambassador, Brandon Ruffin, and then another local Oakland photographer, Terrence Sang. They're the main founders of it, and we have a whole crew, including myself, of people who organize and do different parts like zines and photo galleries and whatnot. So if anyone's in the Bay Area, I highly recommend you follow Cameras and Coffee and just check one of them out, because community is growing every single day, and it's a meet other photographers. And I think the in-person community is really the shift now. I think in 2020 to like 2022, everything became digital because we had to, right? And I thrive from that, doing Zoom calls and things like that. But, for me, I think I kind of got tired of just doing all this digital stuff, because I scaled to the point where I'm so big that I don't want to be accessible at that scale. Like, I don't want 150,000 people DMing me the same question about what's the best camera. So it's refreshing to be able to go to a space where not actually everyone knows me. It's cool. Like, some people just don't even know who the hell I am, and it's cool. Like, versus, online, everybody is following me because they have chosen to follow me, so they know who I am. So being able to go there, learn from other photographers, teach, help other people. A lot of people have like a Fujifilm camera, and then Brandon will be like, "Oh, you got," and like, being able to teach somebody one-on-one on how to set up their film simulations, or they got it stuck on black and white, they're trying to go back to color. Some people don't, they're complicated cameras for a beginner. So being able to do that, as well as just go on photo walks and build that local community and then network with other people, because there's a lot of people who aren't online. There are a lot of photographers that are very talented that don't have a huge audience, that and I think being able to connect with those people has been so invigorating to my creativity, because I think I have found a community where it does feel like it's not competitive. It's like one of those things where somebody has an opportunity, we invite people, like, "Hey, I got this shoot. Do people want to come, come help me?" Like, whoever wants to can. And, if being able to really give opportunities and help other people in that way, where it really doesn't feel like you get clout from helping. Because I think there's a thing of like, you post YouTube and you help people in this public atmosphere. The more help that you can do, you kind of get this like internet clout. In these spaces, there's actually no real way of tracking it other than you're an honest person or not. And I think that's where the real community is growing, is like, if you can turn somebody that you met on the internet into a friend that you actually go out and travel to meet up with, or you meet up locally, or you guys you all like are able to put something out in the world. Like, it doesn't always have to be physically, but take it off the platform and talk to people. Like, for example, talking to you right now.
Yep.
This is I consider this to be something that's real, as opposed to being a comment conversation on Instagram. And I think that's where I hope a lot of people understand that at some point they need to bring their approach there. Because a lot of people are like, "How do I get more engagement?" I'm like, "What's the reason why you want engagement?" It's like, "I need validation for my work." But it's like, did you know that you just going on a photo walk with another friend, and you being juiced on like the photos that you took, showing it to each other, your friend getting a shoot and it's like, hey, you want to come with me on this shoot? I got hired for, you can assist me. And you elevating together in that local community is a whole different game than getting 1,000 likes on Instagram. It feels
100%.
so cool. Yeah, it feels very cool. Like I was lucky enough to be a part of a shoot recently. I can't share the details of what it is, but it was so many local people and being able to help out on like arguably one of the biggest projects that I've been on set for was really cool. And I don't even have to share anything about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like you could be like so inspired. Like I came back home like, wow, this is like the coolest thing I've ever done. I didn't have to share. And the one thing is I couldn't share it because it's NDA, but it's still, you know, that's a bigger high than like, oh, my YouTube video popped off today. Like that, it's odd because it's like when you have those types of successes on social, it's like you'll be very happy one day, and as soon as it falls off, you're like, okay, I got to make the next thing. And it's very hard to always meet it again. Then you feel empty the next thing you post that didn't do well. So it's like, I feel like those in-person communities don't have that drop off. Like I'm excited every month to see my friends again. And I think that's the cool part about it.
And that's kind of where I want to head. I try to be as authentic. I know that's another word, a keyword for a lot of people right now. Be authentic. But I just try to be me.
Yes.
And I just want people to understand, like when I come on here and I'll share my stories of trauma. My rough childhood. I'll willingly share these things so people can see that no matter what happens, there's a way out.
Yep.
You know? And my goal in this whole thing is to bring forward one thing, which is mental health. Mental health is super important. Men's mental health is often overlooked.
Totally.
And the connection between creativity and mental health. So I hear you talking about getting together with these people, this outside real atmosphere. And that's something I want to do in Vancouver. I know they have like beers and photos and all that stuff here. I don't drink often, so that doesn't really appeal to me. Being in a bar, even though it's with people of the same craft and excitement, I'm not a bar guy, so I tend to stay away. You know, so a cafe and meeting a whole bunch of people, potentially being able to work on jobs with people and learning from people who have more experience than I do. That's such a cool way to create a community feel. That's a true community.
Yeah.
So the way you explained it and what you're doing, that's such a cool thing. The fact that you're out there too with people that, you know, it gives you that break. You're not always like, oh, you're Reggie B from the internet. And then they want to hit you up with whatever
exactly
the comment they want to attack every day. But you handle it so well. That's one thing. When I see your responses to people, you're so, and I'm sure in your head, you're like, oh, you ready?
Yeah.
Because it's coming. But you're like, have a good day.
Yeah. And it's come with a lot of like, you know, if I get super triggered, I typically don't respond. One of my mentor and the kind of business coach when it comes to content creation, I asked them about that before. He's like, look, if you're super angry, like you gotta take a break. Like you can't respond with that energy. And then the other thing too that he said is every single time you get triggered by a comment is because there is a sliver of truth in it. You're getting triggered by that truth. You know, you're getting that vulnerability exposed a little bit, so you have to kind of like let that calm down. But I think, you know, I'm a very good arguer, and I also, I will say that when I write a comment, I try to leave as little things to be misinterpreted as possible. And I also do the thing where I say, I hear you, because I know that like it validates somebody who's mad at me. Like, I hear you. And then I say whatever I have to say. I try to make sure I don't say but or why, because those tend to be accusatory words. Like, why would you think that? It's like, oh, what is the reason for you to say that? That sounds totally different. I just had all the, you know, I think for me, it's also kind of like a game. Like I've read this book. It's called, I totally forgot. Never Split the Difference. So it's like a negotiation tactic book for like, it was like a hostage negotiator from the CIA. And he teaches you all these things to say to de-escalate a mad person in order to letting you have the hostage. And you can use all these tactics for other things, like getting your kid to brush their teeth, negotiating a higher brand deal. And I use these things in the comments sometimes because it's just a little bit more fun than arguing with somebody. I can actually like let them run a circle around themselves a little bit. So I don't know. I everyone has their own way to have fun with it. I've seen like my friend Gadgen, he comes back hard with clapbacks all the time, and it's interesting. It's always funny to see his, and my approach is a little different. So, but yeah, it's really funny.
Brushing me off. I've got you. I've had you on, and then I've had Stock Easy on. So yeah. It's a real deal, Gadgen. I know he's busy. Yeah. I love his work. So
that guy is everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
I only get to talk to him maybe like 1 or 2 times a year, but because he's always jet setting somewhere. But
yeah, no,
so
his work.
Catch up with him.
He's living the dream. He's living his dream, and all I can do is support from afar. So maybe one day. So back to the mental health aspect. How do you feel there is that connection between creativity and your mental health?
I think it's deeply intertwined for both the positive and the negative, I will say. I'm somebody, a lot of people say photography is therapy. For me, I can understand if it's therapeutic, but I also am someone who openly will say that I see a therapist every 2 weeks. I used to see a therapist every week, and I had to work through a lot of different things, and I'm in a different point in my life. Back when I started go out take photos, and it's gonna hit that same thing. But what I've noticed is that a lot of the things that I do as a creative, whether it be external validation or feeling success or failure based on a creative project, or even something as somebody coming out at me in the comments, those are things I've been taken into therapy, which is, you would think like, who's gonna go talk about like some YouTube comment in their therapy? I've had multiple therapy sessions where I'm going through understanding why I got triggered by these things. So I think for me, a lot of people, I understand there's the positive aspects of creativity with mental health. And I just want to enlighten and share with people, if you're struggling with your creativity, it can affect you in the negative way of mental health by doom scrolling, comparing yourself, trying to, chase the next engaged post. Those things all affect it. So it's just, that's one of the things that I like to share all the time, is that the mental health aspect, especially of being a creator on the internet, is real, because it's probably the most lonely thing you could do, to put out things out in the ether and just everyone can fire back at you. And then the minute you say, oh, I had a bad comment, everyone in threads or Twitter would say like, don't let them bother you. Keep going. And it's a little bit invalidating when people don't acknowledge the fact that you're still got hurt by somebody. And I think for me, as a father, as a man, that like, that's something I want to pass on to my 2 sons, is that you got hurt and it hurts. Before I tell them like, you can keep going, get up and you can dust it off, like I just let them feel hurt. And I think I never had that in my life. So my biggest thing when it comes to creativity is, if you feel like you didn't do well on a creative project, or you just feel low, it's okay to feel that. Because I think there's almost this positivity, like you got it, like don't worry about them. But it almost makes you feel like I'm stupid for worrying about that person, which you're not. Like everyone feels hurt at some point. And I think being able to understand that there's a lot of weight when it comes to putting your creativity out in the world, because it's the most vulnerable thing you could do. You're literally expressing yourself in something you're proud of. And there's a possibility that no one cares about it. Everyone hates it. It's scary, but it's like being able to tell people that you're not alone. If you feel like you're the worst photographer in the world, feel alone if no one watches your videos, you put all these hours into it. And I think that's one of the things that, like, I don't want to be a downer, but it's one of those things I think needs to be said, because no one says it. No one says how hard it is to be a creative, because with the highest highs, there's very extreme lows that no one talks about.
And watching the analytics, man, the obsessive flicking on the analytics of everything you put out to see who's commented, to see how many likes you've had. And I like removed the ability to do it from my phone because as a new creator, I was constantly like excited all the time. I'm like, oh, well, why is this? This one was great. Why is it not working?
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that really is something I tell people is that it's okay not to be okay.
Yes,
That's something people don't understand. So because I started doing this podcast and I do talk a lot about mental health and struggle and my traumas and other people's traumas. For the first time since I was 10, I spoke to a therapist last week. And man, I got some stuff to work through. But it was the first time I felt like I was honest with one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
I just let it go. You know, I cried because there's things I regret happening. And I'm okay with that.
Yep.
Because I'm sharing and I'm learning every day. This is my new journey into my life that just happens to be on the internet.
Yep.
People are able to hear the story of my journey. They're able to share the story of their journey. But like you just said, you weren't afraid to tell me you've been in therapy, that you're in therapy, that it helps. And that's what more people need to hear and understand is the more of us who talk about it, the more of us who put it out there, the more people we can help.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And when I started this, I talked to James Rice a few weeks ago. So his episode was 2 weeks ago, I believe, at this point. And he's got a very traumatic story. But the one thing he gave me, because I'm very hypercritical and worried about my own stuff all the time, and I'll explain a story that just happened yesterday, exactly what I mean by it. But he just said the best words were to be able to forgive yourself. When you're very hard on yourself, you need to forgive yourself from being hard on yourself. So that was great advice. And the way you worded it, I think that's going to hit a lot of people. And if this podcast can help one person, I don't care how many people listen. If it helps one person be willing to be more open, talk to a therapist, or look at their best friend, their best guy friend, or their partner, whatever it is, and say, I really need help. I'm struggling. Totally. And then I've done exactly what I'm setting out to do. So my story is that Hobolite released a new light yesterday. And I've had it for, it's my first NDA with a brand in the photography space, which is
nice. Was
super weird to me, but it's awesome. They've been phenomenal. They fully backed I'm a lifetime ambassador with them, which was crazy. Kieran is very much supportive of my vision. But then I start seeing all the heavy hitters that are putting out these photos and these videos. And I'm like, what am I doing with all these heavy hitters? Like, I'm brand new. And I posted a photo and I'm like, oh, the light's great. And I'm really good at like supporting the product and putting it out to people. And, man, last night was rough. I was super harsh on myself, to the point I went to bed. I went to bed at 9:30 because I couldn't get out of my head. Like, what is it that I'm doing? Why do I deserve to be here? All these other people are doing these great things. And today I got an Instagram comment from someone saying, my new podcast obsession is the Life of Phys. Please go check it out. It's amazing. And I'm like, that's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm here. Yeah. But I tend to have a struggle to remember those things. Do you have any advice for people coming up as a creator that how to remember that the end goal is that you want to share your work? It's not what the people say. It's not about sponsorships. It's not about money. It's about getting the best product out instead of worrying about the comments and the negative aspect of it.
So one thing I will say to you is like, so validation, external validation, of course, you don't want to rely on that. But I will, similar to what I just said, it does affect us. As creatives, as content creators, whatever you want to say, when we put things out there, it's not because we just want no one to see it. Like, we're putting it out there to help people to share an important message. And I think being able to kind of like remember, like, this is for somebody, this isn't for everyone. Those negative comments are always going to be people who are the everyone. Like, you can't satisfy everybody with something you put out there, but there it is perfect for some people. And being able to hone in and focus on those people is really what's helped me. Because then you can filter out, like, oh, this person doesn't like it, and yeah, because they're blah blah blah. You know what I mean? It was never for them. And then a trick that I had early on was that if I got a really nice comment, like something that was just very cool to see, I would screenshot it. And then I would put it in this folder. I don't actually look at it anymore because I think I'm at a point where I don't need it as much. But when I was starting out, it was in a folder called like Pick Me Up. So on those days that I just felt like, dang, like my YouTube videos suck, or like everyone's like giving me shit on Instagram or whatever, I had this one of like cool comments from people that you know really were impactful. They really got something out of it. Like, I had comments from like really big YouTubers that like would message me like, oh, you're the person who taught me how to use my Fujifilm camera. Like, I was like, what? I taught that person how to use, so I would save them and then I would look at them. So, those bright spots, like, just screenshot them, save them on your phone, and those things maybe help you to carry you through those times, because those are points of your creative career that you felt really at a high moment. It's okay to just save them for later when you're at a low moment and need to remember what it felt like. I think that was something that really helped me.
I did that with that comment I just mentioned. I screenshotted it and sent it to my wife, and I said, now I remember why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I let myself get sidetracked a little bit, just because I was like, I wanted to put something amazing out, but because I've been so busy trying to put out this product, I haven't really picked my camera up much in a couple months.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, how am I going to do it? And I'm trying to think of a quick way, but I don't want to create something quick. I want something to have meaning.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously I get people going, man, like, why are you stressing out?
Yeah.
You have a pretty good thing going. So maybe you should just focus on that and everything will come around. You're fine. But with people like yourself, like, I consider, once I talk to someone personally and we're here in a personal space, having a personal conversation, like, I consider you my friend, Reggie. So it's like, I'll reach out to you, and you can reach out to me and we can chat. And I would love to, if I make it down to San Fran, come, we'll get together and do a photo walk or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
But, and this is how everybody I've had on has created something different in my world. You know what I mean? Like, I've learned something new from so many different people in the last few months that I just appreciate the time. And I think a lot of people need to understand, like, when somebody's putting work out, a nice comment goes a long way. A negative comment, whether some doesn't affect them, others it affects them deeply. But just be good people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Telling somebody to die over a YouTube video, or
Yeah.
attacking somebody for the way they look or the way they dress or the way they feel, I mean, that's not cool. Like, that's not even in a realm of a normal human being. That's just you being an asshole, like, point blank. So I'd like to hear about maybe some new projects you might be working on, or some new videos. Kind of like to hear about your experience working with Fujifilm as an ex-photographer. Why don't you explain, or just tell us about your time with Fujifilm as an ex-photographer?
For sure. I think for me, it was really one of the high points of kind of like my photographic career, because it's like, you always think about like, oh, it'd be cool to you see these ambassadors, and I was able to be invited on. I think, to be quite honest, I had a similar experience to you with Hobolite. So I always thought, like, why the hell am I here? Like, you know what I mean? Like, next to all these other people, like people that I was like following and learning from when I was getting my footing as a wedding photographer. So it was a little bit of a interesting, I think, personal journey for me, but they were always supportive, being able to play with like the latest and greatest toys and things like that, and just being able to be part of a large collective of creatives was cool. I think the best part of it was being able to meet other photographers in different states, uh, and being able to travel to different places and meet up with them, as well as if they came to San Francisco for me to hang out with them. That the network in itself was the coolest part. Um, that's actually how I've connected with a lot of the people that I kind of still work with now. Even like Brandon Ruffin was a Fujifilm ex photographer before he went over to the Leica side. Um, so I think for me, the biggest thing that was the reason why I kind of like separated though was because I got to a point where I was growing a lot. Like my brand was growing more so than I think what I was able to kind of like glean from their program. Um, and I think it's pretty obvious that like when you're an ambassador, you can only use that brand. And for me, it was kind of one of those things: is if my North Star is to teach as many people as possible, why would I just stay to one brand? So obviously, I didn't go too far. I still have all my Fujifilm gear, right? But being able to have the opportunity to use other brands to kind of like see what other cameras work like, which helps me to kind of like bring different skills back to the Fujifilm system, as well as being able to connect with other people on like Ricoh, Panasonic. I still got Nikon SLR film cameras, all that stuff. So being able to kind of go full circle, I think has been super helpful. I'm curious if you had a specific question about what it was, because I think there's different things that happen within the ambassadorship, and I'm just curious if you had a specific thing you were wanting to know more about.
I think my big thing is just how it all came into play,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm in contact currently with Fujifilm Canada.
Mm-hmm.
They've offered to send me gear to whenever I need it to use. But there's just, to me, being a major Fujifilm guy, and like it's my brand, and that would be like you said, that would be like the goal. It would be like a milestone in my career as a photographer, to be able to have that, just to have the opportunity to say that I'm an ex photographer.
Totally.
So just even the roadmap of how it all, like how you did it, how you achieved it, and what they give you as an ex photographer that's different from, say, me, who just sends them an email and goes, "Hey, I need a 50 mil f1 and 150 to 600," and they send it to me.
Um, yeah. So for me, I think the biggest thing was building community, right, and kind of like an external facing thing. So my work as teaching on Instagram, as well as building a YouTube audience, a YouTube channel that is very educational focus, was probably the biggest thing. And they had an open call for Fujifilm ex creators back in like 2020. And I think they still have, at least for the US side, like the collaborator application, and that's basically how that worked out. So I always tell people ask like, how can I um, be an ambassador, like, be on the way for that. My biggest tip is start already doing something great without a brand, and then you'll know you're in the right trajectory for a brand to want to be partner with you. Because I think if you make the end goal, I want to work for this brand, it's a very like, once you hit that, then where's the progress from there? That's always my thing, and I think that's just coming from the wisdom from the other side of having done it. Now it's more like a chapter in my book as opposed to the end of the story, and I'm still growing from there. I think for me, having been a part of that, I met a lot of people, I learned a lot of things, and then I found that for me, continuing on to grow past it was the choice for me. So. And I think as far as like differences, I think that part I can't share too much because they usually make you do like a lot of NDA stuff, but it's not too much different than what you're saying.
Okay.
I will just say that. So there's not a lot much different compared to what you're saying. And there's all when it comes with any launch, it's very obvious that only certain people can have it. So it's always going to be luck of the draw. Sometimes, from what I notice, now that I'm out of the program, for example, the Extra 106 went to certain people, and not all of them were ambassadors. Some of them were just YouTubers or big name creatives within the industry. So, you know, there is a chance. I don't think specifically being an ambassador is always the advanced way to get something. Like I saw Omar Gonzalez, YouTuber, is one of the people who had the XT50 that just got announced. And there's a whole slew of ambassadors that I think only a handful of people shared that they used the camera or had the camera. So, yeah, I think I don't have a hard or a very solid answer to like how to go down that path, but I think I will say what you're doing right now is the right way to go about it. Kind of like have something you're passionate about, build community, kind of already have so much steam and momentum that you would continue doing it even without a brand. Usually when you're doing something like that, that's when those opportunities come. That's what I noticed. Instead of like hoping, wishing for it to happen, then it probably will never happen. It's like when you're already so focused on growing whatever that thing is you're passionate about, usually the opportunities come for brands who want to be part of like where you're moving, how quickly you're moving, how much momentum you have in moving where you're going.
Okay. That's great advice. I found when I first got on with Hobolight, I'm like, okay, so I need to do this. I need to find this partner and this partner and this partner. And I lost focus for a couple weeks. I was like, I got to do this. And then I was like, wait a minute. What I like to do is have this microphone in my face and talk to people. I need to focus on that. Yeah. Whatever comes from it is cool. But I'll tell you, when I got the email from Fuji Canada's marketing company, I was pretty darn excited. Yeah. I sent it to a buddy who also gets stuff sent to him, and I said, "Is this legit?" Because I didn't know. So and he's like, "Oh yeah, I deal with her all the time. That's awesome." So it was good. Any projects coming up that you're working on that you're going to be putting out?
So right now, I think it's I don't know. Like I have a lot of different YouTube videos that I'm working on. Like I think the way that I think about it is similar to if you're familiar with like those project car YouTube channels, like right, they have content around like a specific project car, and they're also working on another car. And like I've started to realize that that's probably what my channel is more like, is like I have all these X106 stuff coming. I have like the X70 and like the Rico. I think the biggest thing that I have that I want to make that I haven't made yet is my first piece on the X70, because I have a Fujifilm X70, which is probably by far my favorite camera in my entire kit. It's also the oldest camera that I have. That's not film.
Wait, Reggie shoots film?
Yeah, and I find myself like not making the video. And you know, like, so I think one day I will, but I've noticed that a lot of the big projects that I have, I just don't release the video, and that's what I found. There's another big video that I have coming up is I went out to Long Beach to photograph drifting. So for people who aren't it's not a typical racing sport where you're going from point A to B the fastest. Instead, it's more like figure skating, where it's kind of judged on like style and speed, and there's a little bit of competitive aspect in terms of like how you perform next to the other car. But they're like sliding around. Yeah, they're sliding around 1,000 horsepower. That's like the American style drifting. It's like 1,000 horsepower cars, like burning so much rubber. So I have the opportunity to go to this event twice already, and I still have no YouTube videos that recapped it. So I've been trying to push myself to like, I've already like went to the first one in April last year, teased like the footage every now and then. People are like, when's the video coming out? And then never came out. And now I went again. So now I have like 2 different times that I've went. And I think the projects that I care the most about, I tend to take so long to put out, as opposed to like, oh, here's settings on Fujifilm X-T5 thing. Like, but yeah, those are the big projects I've been working on. And then I worked on I was on set for behind the scenes for a big project. Like that was the biggest project I'm working on recently, but unfortunately I can't talk about it. When it comes out, I could probably message you about this is what I was working on, but I can't say anything yet.
For sure. I never push an NDA. I understand it's very important to our business. So I'm a big drifting fan. I'm a big motorsports fan. I've seen you tease it, and I did realize you never put it out.
Yeah. I actually have an entire like 45-second like super epic like intro. Like it's a very crazy like epic classical music. Like it's like an orchestra. And I already showed it to like multiple YouTubers. Like, what do you think about this intro? They're like, oh, this is gonna be a good video. But it just stopped there. So I gotta like make the rest of the video.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad I'm not alone. I'm glad we're the same.
Yeah.
I always do that.
I think it with everybody's like pet project, like it's like it takes forever. But it's one of those things where it's like, I've learned that like I'll just take my time with it. Yeah. The previous video that took a really long time for me to make was I made a video on my approach to balancing documenting my family and staying present. And it took me like, I want to say like a whole, more than a year. Like it has more than a year's worth of footage on it, obviously, because documenting my family. But like it took me a long time to like script it or work my around to actually making the video. And then I finally pushed through it and put it out. Sadly, it doesn't get a lot of views, but it's definitely, the people who did comment on the video, it was the right people were finding it. So I think that's the other thing too, is like I know that once I put it out, my favorite video is probably not going to do that well, so I might as well just take the time that I want to do to make it what I want it to be. Yeah,
do it for yourself.
Exactly.
And that's something I learned. Even some of my favorite episodes so far, they don't have the numbers of others. And I'm still like, no, I'm proud of that one. I really enjoyed that one. Like those are, and just learning that those numbers really don't matter.
Totally.
If I'm doing this for the love of doing it, I'm not doing this for a paycheck, and I'm not doing this to support my family. I'm doing this to learn from other people, to meet people like yourself. And create a network of people that I can reach out to when I'm having questions or struggles, and ask questions about, hey, am I approaching this the right direction? I'm not quite sure what I'm doing. And sharing stories, man, just sharing your story so people can see you from a different light, not just the guy who makes film simulations and should just shoot film.
Yeah.
Brian Atkins, I saw you. Yeah. My friend Brian giving you grief.
Oh, so you do know?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, he was on your podcast. I saw
he
that.
Was. Yeah. He's a good dude. He was just he's just.
I answered his question though, and he backed off, so it was nice. It's one of those things where he's like, I'm really curious. I'm like, well, here's my approach. He's like, okay, that makes sense. I'm like, all right. I didn't have to keep going. It's funny. It's funny too, because it's like the film simulation thing is very new to my career. I was processing RAWs for wedding clients like over, I don't know, I want to say like over 300,000 client photos that I've had to like edit. But now it's like, it's very freeing, and it's also a point where like I don't shoot anything that demanding that requires me to have a lot of white balance shifts. So yeah, the film simulation, everyone thinks that like, oh, he's never done anything. It's like, well, I've had a whole life way before that. I had a film simulation recipe named after me.
Get that little bit of Reggie's portrait.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really funny because like I made the Reggie's portrait. Funny story is it originally was not called Reggie's portrait. It was just my version of tweaking. His name is Richie, the Fuji X Weekly founder. I just tweaked his Portra 400 recipe, and I was just like, I'm going to tweak it to how I want to shoot. Clarity, I didn't like the lag, so I turned that off. I'm Filipino, so a lot of the people that I photograph have, a melanated skin, so I wanted to make sure that was represented accurately. So I needed to do a little bit of tweaks to the white balance to get that dialed in, and then I used like a Cinebloom filter to kind of like round it all out. And I think the most important thing is I didn't want it to be white balance specific. So a lot of the film sim recipes are based on how film reacts to specific white balance. Like you have the Cinestill one is going to be for the tungsten balancer and stuff. So I wanted it to just work across the board. So it was like kind of like a hybrid, like digital experience with like an analog kind of like nod.
You should just shoot film then, Reggie.
Exactly. Yeah. And then Richie reached out. He's like, what's the name for the film simulation? I love it. And I was like, I don't have a name. So he just like put it on the site, and it was just called Reggie's Portrait, and it just stuck. And like, I think I've always been hesitant to like name things after me or to take credit. But, you know, after it's gotten a lot of popularity, I'm just like leaning into it. Like, yeah, I'm the Reggie behind Reggie's Portrait. And a lot of people try to ask me to make new recipes and all that stuff. So when I got on Rico, I was like, okay, I'm just going to try to recreate this look. And it turns out that a lot of people like that look better. And now they're asking me to like make the Rico version, but back to Fujifilm. Like, I don't know how to keep going back and forth. So it's pretty funny.
Yeah. I'm learning quickly the internet is a fun place. Before just posting photos and all that, it didn't matter. But now that I've created this platform and it's got some traction, and I have, you know, my brand partner Hobolite and all this stuff working in my favor, I find a lot of people are really not publicly yet, but privately, they're sending me some pretty like, oh, you don't deserve this kind of nonsense. That stuff doesn't bother me, but you know, I can only imagine. I just started posting on YouTube, so I can imagine what's coming my way.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I've had to really dial back on that, like in terms of responding to DMs, responding to comments. It's in the beginning, I came from this community building aspect, right? So I wanted to respond to people because this was my way to kind of like mentor and let people shadow me in a way that I didn't have to be there physically, because I had 2 kids that I was helping take care of daily. I didn't have that opportunity to go to a bar and have drinks with somebody and talk shop with them. So this was my way. And as it started getting steam, I realized like I can't respond to everything. And I tried to as much as I can. And when I was a full-time content creator, that was really kind of like my day-to-day was responding to all these DMs and things like that. But it gets to a point though, when you're that available, people get a little bit exploitative. They want me to literally think for them, which is I don't have time to think for everybody. And a lot of it's kind of like, what camera should I get? I'm going to shoot my first wedding. And it's like, I'd love to help all these people, but I've got my own family. I've got my own things. I got my own clients, my own business to take care of. So it's a slippery slope once you start responding to things. So I've learned to kind of dial back, you know, set my boundaries, especially this year. I try not to respond to any DMs that are really something people could Google, because a lot of people kind of on the internet, it's a little interesting. It doesn't seem like Google works anymore, or people prefer to DM and comment a question as opposed to look it up. So whereas I'm an obsessive researcher. I think I look up a lot of things, especially like articles and blogs and, you know, science behind things. So I always know the answer, and I think it's one of those things where I just have to hold back and like they can learn to find the answer too. I don't always have to handhold and spoon feed everything to everyone.
And I think that's an important lesson to learn. I mean, trying to give everybody every answer, it's taking away from your own creativity. It's taking away from your own time with your family, your own time with your business, right? So we have to learn to separate. And that's, totally, again, something I'm learning super quick. Like this has been I think this is month 3 since I started. And I mean, episode 23 went up this morning. So
that's a lot.
I've been hustling, and I just announced like I'm going one day a week now. They're coming out on Thursdays. I'm actually trying to start. I want to have enough episodes to kind of get me through the summer.
Sure.
So I can I want to take July and August to enjoy some time with my family and not take personal projects, take some photos. So
totally. Yeah.
Well, one of my favorite videos that you've ever done and gave me the reason to buy this lens was your wakeboarding with the 90mm f2.
Oh, yeah.
I go way back. So
that's an old one. Yeah.
Yeah. I bought the 90mm like
that was
right
back
after
when I
that.
still had like the little intro and all that stuff. Yeah. that was a fun shoot. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it gave me that idea.
I'm like, all right, what am I going to bring?
Yeah. But it let me know that I could use that lens for something different. You know, not just it's a portrait lens. Well, I don't really want to shoot portrait, but I like that focal length. So yeah, man, I appreciate your time. I think that getting to know people on this personal level is so important, to let others know that you're just like us. You know, you get up in the morning, you're a dad, you have kids, you have all of these responsibilities, and you put out the content that you care about and that you want to put out. It's not for the numbers, you know, which I'm sure a review of a new camera is probably your best number videos always, because they seem to be, right? They always seem to be, okay, the X100-6 is out. This is my thought on it. Everybody wants to know. But you keep going, you keep pushing and putting out videos that you care about. I love your Disneyland videos with, you know, I have a thing about the V8 logo. And you keep posting the V8 logo and the neon, and I'm like, oh, I'm sold.
Yeah.
So again, thank you, Reggie.
You can't pass that photo up.
No.
For sure. Appreciate you for having me, man.
No, it's been great. I look forward to catching up and, you know, maybe getting together and doing some kind of some photo shoot, or just being able to communicate openly now that, you know, you finally answered my message about coming on.
For sure. Sorry about the delay. Yeah.
Oh, it's all good, dude. I was like pretty excited. I was like, oh, he did see it. But yeah, thank you again. Man.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Life of Phys Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our chat, and don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us continue to bring you content and the stories of our incredible guests. And remember to stay connected with us on all social media platforms. It's at LIFE.OF.PHYS, and discover even more stories from the community over competition movement. Have a great day.